Hey everyone, Anthony Scott here, toyhypeusa.com. Today we are reviewing FanHome's Iron Man subscription box number 25, which includes issues number 95, 96, 97, 98, assembly guide number 14. And over here we have assembly check. This is where you can check parts of your build so far. Each of these magazines come with parts to continue on with the build. I also would like to thank FanHome for sending along this box for review. It's greatly appreciated. To subscribe and for more information, check out the FanHome website, and you can click off the links right in the YouTube description or the hyperlinks of toyhypeusa.com take you over to the FanHome site. Thank you in advance for clicking off those links. Here's a closer look at issue 95, including the parts we're going to be using for assembly. On the cover, we have War Machine Model 8. First article, Return of the Mandarin. A continuation. And now a look at the parts and assembly. Here is a breakdown here. 3 bags of screws. This is where the parts are going to go. And here's a look at assembly. Next page. And we have an exploded view. And that's your completed assembly right there. An exploded view, which helps a lot when assembling. Next article, Marvel Visions. A continuation. And War Machine Model 8. On the back, we have Iron Man Volume 5, issue number 18 from January 2014. A description and a look at the next issue. I'm going to assemble this now, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the completed assembly. The abdomen is now complete. All these parts are assembled, and we're using one part from the previous issue. This was not an easy assembly. Lots of little tricks to install this, things like that, but I did figure it out. So here is your look at that. This is what it's going to look like when it's completed. And I am now moving on to the next issue. Issue 96 is up next, and here's a look at the parts we're going to be using for assembly. Inside this issue, War Machine Model 9. First article, Infinity Battling Thanos. A continuation. And now we have a breakdown of the parts and assembly. Here's a look at the parts right here. A lot of parts in this one. Bags of screws. And here's a look at assembly. Really take your time, as this does get a little bit complicated. Page 2. And you can see we're going to be using the legs here, adding more to them. Assembly of the hip joint. Last page. an exploded view. This helps greatly. And a 3D view. Next article, Iron Cameos, Where is Iron Man? A continuation. And War Machine Model 9. And War Machine, how many models are there? Here's a look at the back, giving you the cover of Infinity #1 from October 2013, a description, and a look at the next issue. I'm going to work on assembly now, and let's take a closer look. Phew, that was a lot of work. Okay, so here's a look at the abdomen. This is completed and put together as shown. I did have trouble connecting these two parts, so this is going to stick out a little bit. I had trouble screwing it in, so hopefully it will still work. And this is where it's really time-consuming, the lower legs, connecting it, putting it all together. But it was straightforward. Here's a look at this, and it's coming along great. This part on the side just doesn't want to stay in right, but that's easy enough to put back together. And here is a look at the back. As you can see here, this part also came off. Keep in mind, as this is a Partwork, some of these will be loose, so it might fall off as you're moving it around, things like that. But these parts are easy enough to put back together. So there's your look at this issue. I am now moving on to issue 97. Here's a look at issue 97 and all the parts that we're going to be using for assembly. First article, Iron Man 3030, A Bullet from a God. A continuation. And now we have a breakdown of the parts and the steps we're going to be using for assembly. Here's a look at the parts. And here is the steps. Joining the hips to the knees, and that's assembly there. Here's an exploded view and a 3D view. This is what Iron Man's going to look like. As you can see, we are very close to completion. It's another look. And visual of Iron Man. Next article, the Stark Saga Family Tree. A continuation. And here's a look at the back, Avengers Volume 5, issue number 24 from February 2014. A description and a look at the next issue. I'm going to assemble this now. And let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the completed assembly. This bottom hip joint is now attached to the legs. This was a little bit time consuming as I accidentally reversed that joint that connects both the legs together. So I had to kind of take it apart and replace it. But I was able to do that after a few hours of craziness. But here's a final look at the legs. As you can see, the detail is just phenomenal on them. These two parts for the pelvis, these kind of look like lobster claws. We will be using this probably in the next issue. So here's a closer look at that. As you can see, it's together, it's screwed in as shown. Going back to the legs and the hip, This is all very nicely done. Just keep in mind it's on a little bit on the fragile side, so as you're playing around with it, just be careful. Here is a look at the back. And here's a closer look. So I am now going to be moving on to the next issue. Here's a look at issue 98, including the parts we're going to be using for assembly. On the cover, we have Neymar. First article, the Iron Patriot. A continuation. And here's a breakdown of the parts and assembly for this issue. A lot of parts in this one. And this is where it's going to go. And here's a look at the steps. Next page. Now we're going to be assembling Iron Man. It's finally happening. And keep in mind there are at least 3 more boxes after this one, so I'll be showing you guys what's in here. This is not the final box. Here's a look at Iron Man on his base. Here's an exploded view, 3D view as well. And now we have Neymar. And a continuation, the Illuminati as well. On the back, we have Iron Patriot, Volume 1, Issue number 1, from May 2014, a bio, and a look at the next issue. I'm going to assemble this now, and let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the completed assembly. Here are all these hip parts here. These are all done, screwed in. And here's the 4th one. For now, we're not up to completing Iron Man. There's still 1 more box after this one, and then several interchangeable parts. He comes with battle damage parts that at least consist of 3 boxes, 3 or 4 boxes actually. So I have at least 4 or 5 boxes left to go. And I am now moving on to the next issue. Here's a look at assembly guide number 14. These are the parts we're going to be using for assembly. Inside this issue is just instructions. Here's a breakdown of the parts and step-by-step instructions. This is the turntable plates. And here's a look at the steps. And completed assembly. I'm going to assemble this right now. And let's take a closer look. Here's a look at the base. This fits on right on the bottom. And here is a wider look at everything. There's a look at the magazine. And I am now moving on to the next issue, which is Assembly Check. The final issue is Assembly Check, and here is a look at that. This is a reprint of many of the key steps that are necessary to complete Iron Man. Here's a closer look at some of those steps. So far, my Iron Man is not fully assembled, as I will be completing that in the next issue. And then we will focus on the interchangeable parts that show the battle damage. Next part. Again, these are just essential steps. And that's the last page. Oh, there's one more on the back. This is for attaching the arms. And we completed the upper torso a couple of boxes ago. So overall, my recommendation would be to subscribe. Iron Man is a fantastic figure. I think fans are going to love. It's really not a figure. This is a model kit just for display, not play value. Thank you again to FanHome for sending along for a review. It's greatly appreciated. To subscribe and for more information, check out the FanHome website. You could do so by clicking off the link in the YouTube description or the hyperlinks off of toyhypeusa.com. I am Anthony Scott. Thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for more coverage and reviews.